Have you ever wondered what it feels like to be the villain in someone else's love story? To be the one who almost destroyed a beautiful relationship out of jealousy and insecurity? Well, buckle up, folks, because I'm about to take you on a wild ride through the streets of Atlanta where love, betrayal, and redemption collide in ways you never saw coming. This is my story. The story of how I nearly ruined my best friend's life and learned the hard way that some bonds can't be broken, even when shattered. Stay tuned, because trust me, you won't believe how this ends. My name's Evan Harris, and I'm the guy you're gonna love to hate. It all started on a sweltering summer night in Atlanta. The air was thick with humidity, and the skyline twinkled like a constellation of man-made stars. My best friend since diapers, Jake Miller, was celebrating his big promotion at some fancy architecture firm downtown. We were living it up on the rooftop of the Hotel Claremont, the Peachtree Center looming in the background like a glass giant. Jake looked different that night, all confident and shit, like he'd finally figured out the secret to life. That's when he introduced us to her, Nia Carter. Let me tell you, Nia was something else. Smooth, dark skin, eyes that sparkled brighter than the city lights, and a smile that could make a grown man weak in the knees. Jake had met her at some sustainable fashion fair where she was showcasing pieces from her boutique. From the get-go, it was clear these two had something special. I remember the way Jake looked at her, like she hung the moon and stars. It was a look I'd never seen on my friend's face before, and if I'm being honest, it scared the hell out of me. See, Jake and I have been inseparable since we were kids. We grew up in the same neighborhood, went to the same schools, shared the same dreams. He was more than just my best friend. He was my brother. As the months rolled by, I watched Jake slip away. Our Sunday basketball games in Piedmont Park, replaced by fancy brunches with Nia, beer and video game nights, swapped for charity galas and wine tastings. Jake was changing, and I felt like I was being left in the dust. At first, I tried to be happy for him. I really did. I'd smile and nod when he'd go on and on about Nia's latest fashion line, or how she was changing the world one sustainable piece at a time. But deep down, a seed of resentment was taking root. I didn't stop at just feeling resentful. No, I took it several steps further. Shame on me. I started orchestrating little accidents to keep them apart. I'd conveniently forget to pass on messages, or I'd plan guys' nights that just happened to conflict with Jake and Nia's dates. But the worst thing I did, I went to Jake's parents. Mr. and Mrs. Miller had always treated me like a second son, and I used that trust against them. I spun a web of lies about Nia, painting her as a gold digger who was after Jake's potential inheritance. I told them she had a shady past, that she was using Jake to climb the social ladder in Atlanta. She's not who you think she is. I remember telling Jake's mom one afternoon over coffee, I'm worried about Jake. He's not thinking clearly. The Millers, God bless them, they were just trying to protect their son. They didn't know they were being manipulated by someone they trusted. They started questioning Jake about Nia, expressing their concerns. They even went as far as forbidding Nia from coming to family gatherings. Jake was confused and hurt. He couldn't understand why his parents suddenly had such a problem with Nia. And Nia? She was devastated. She tried to prove herself, to show the Millers she was genuine, but my lies had poisoned the well. For a moment, I thought I'd succeeded. Jake and Nia were fighting more, stressed by the family tension. I told myself it was for the best, that Jake would thank me eventually, but I underestimated their love. Instead of driving them apart, the adversity seemed to bring them closer together. They stood united against the disapproval, their bond growing stronger with each challenge. Watching them overcome the obstacles I'd put in their way, I realized the depth of my mistake. But by then, it was too late. The seed of resentment had grown into a full-blown forest of deceit, and I was lost in it. One night, after weeks of canceled plans and unanswered texts, I finally managed to drag Jake out for a drink at Manuel's Tavern. The place was buzzing with the usual crowd of locals and college kids, but Jake seemed distracted, checking his phone every few minutes. Dude, you're never around anymore, I complained, taking a swig of my beer. Jake sighed, fiddling with his bottle. Things are different now, Evan. Nia and I are talking about moving in together. It felt like a sucker punch to the gut. Jake, my ride or die, my brother from another mother, was leaving me behind. That night, something inside me snapped. I started plotting. If I could show Jake that Nia wasn't as perfect as he thought, maybe things would go back to normal. That's when shit really hit the fan. Using my video editing skills I'd honed making stupid prank videos with Jake back in college. I created fake footage of Jake at a party, making it look like he was cheating on Nia. I manipulated old photos, edited videos, crafted a lie so convincing I almost believed it myself. I spent nights hunched over my computer, fueled by a toxic mix of jealousy and Red Bull. I told myself I was doing it for Jake's own good, that I was saving him from making a huge mistake. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was scared of losing my best friend, and I was willing to do anything to keep him. With shaking hands and a knot in my stomach, I sent the evidence to Nia. I remember hovering over the send button, knowing that once I clicked it, there was no going back. But I did it anyway. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Nia dumped Jake without giving him a chance to explain. I'll never forget the look on Jake's face when he showed up at my apartment that night, his eyes red and puffy, his voice cracking as he tried to make sense of what had happened. "She won't even talk to me, Evan," he said, collapsing onto my couch. "I don't understand. I would never cheat on her. Never. I should have confessed right then and there. But I was in too deep. So instead, I played the role of the supportive best friend, offering him a beer and a shoulder to cry on. Jake was a wreck in the days that followed. He stopped going to work, stopped eating, stopped doing pretty much everything except staring at his phone, hoping for a message from Nia that never came. I told myself that it was just a phase, that he'd get over her and things would go back to normal. But things got worse. In my desperation to save our friendship, I convinced Jake to settle an old debt with a dangerous acquaintance from our past. There was this guy, Marcus, who Jake owed money to from our wilder college days. I thought if I could get Jake involved in something risky, something that reminded him of our old adventures, it would snap him out of his funk. "Come on, man," I said one night after Jake had polished off his fourth beer. "Let's go talk to Marcus. Clear the slate. It'll be like old times." Jake hesitated, but I could see the spark of interest in his eyes. He was hurting, vulnerable, and I took advantage of that. God, what an idiot I was. We met Marcus at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. The place was sketchy as hell, all broken windows and graffiti-covered walls. Marcus wasn't alone. He had two burly guys with him, their eyes cold and calculating. The situation spiraled out of control faster than a tornado in Tornado Alley. Marcus wasn't interested in Jake's money anymore. He wanted revenge for some perceived slight from years ago. Before I knew what was happening, fists were flying and Jake was on the ground. I tried to step in to stop it, but one of Marcus's goons held me back. I watched helplessly as they beat Jake, the sickening sound of fists hitting flesh echoing in the empty warehouse. When they finally left, Jake was barely conscious, blood pooling on the concrete floor beneath him. I called 911 with trembling fingers, praying that I hadn't just gotten my best friend killed. Jake ended up in Grady Memorial Hospital, fighting for his life. Broken ribs, internal bleeding, a severe concussion. The list of injuries seemed endless. Seeing him in that hospital bed, tubes and machines everywhere, the reality of what I'd done hit me like a freight train. I had almost killed my best friend. The guilt was overwhelming. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jake's broken body on that warehouse floor. I knew I had to make things right, but I was terrified of facing the consequences of my actions. After days of internal struggle, I couldn't take it anymore. I went to Nia's boutique in Midtown, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. Nia was there, arranging a display of eco-friendly dresses. She looked up when I entered, her expression hardening when she recognized me. "What do you want, Evan?" she asked, her voice cold. I took a deep breath and spilled my guts. I told her everything. The fake photos, the videos, my jealousy, and finally, the disastrous meeting with Marcus. By the time I finished, tears were streaming down my face. Nia's words still echo in my head. "How could you? You almost destroyed our lives because you were jealous." I expected her to yell, to hit me, to call the cops. Instead, she did something that floored me. She focused on saving Jake. "We need to go to the hospital," she said, already grabbing her purse. "Jake needs us." In the days that followed, I watched Nia sit by Jake's bedside, holding his hand, whispering words of encouragement. Their love was stronger than any lie I could have concocted. It was beautiful and heartbreaking to witness. Slowly, Jake began to improve. When he finally opened his eyes, the first person he saw was Nia. The love that passed between them in that moment was so intense, so pure, that I had to look away. I felt like an intruder, witnessing something I had no right to see. Jake's recovery was long and painful. Physical therapy, doctor's appointments, more medications than I could count. Through it all, Nia was there, supporting him, loving him. And me? I was on the sidelines, racked with guilt, trying to figure out how to make things right. When Jake was strong enough, I confessed everything to him too. The look of disappointment and betrayal in his eyes was worse than any punishment I could have received. "I trusted you, Evan," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You were my brother." The past tense hit me like a punch to the gut. I knew then that our friendship, the brotherhood we'd shared for so long, was over. Now, I'm facing the legal consequences of my actions. Turns out, orchestrating a beatdown and fabricating evidence are pretty serious crimes. I've lost my job, my reputation, and nearly lost my freedom. But more than anything, I've lost Jake and Nia. As part of my plea deal, I'm required to attend therapy and complete community service. It's during these sessions that I've started to understand the depth of my actions. I wasn't just jealous. I was possessive, manipulative, and selfish. I put my own fears and insecurities above the happiness of someone I claimed to care about. Jake and Nia are back together, stronger than ever. Sometimes I see them walking hand in hand along the belt line, laughing and talking. It hurts, but I know it's how it should be. They found something real, something beautiful, and I almost destroyed it because I was too scared to face my own loneliness. My story is a reminder of how jealousy and insecurity can lead us to make terrible mistakes. But it's also a story of forgiveness and how true love can overcome even the cruelest of lies. Jake and Nia didn't have to forgive me, but they did. They're moving forward with their lives, and in a way, that's given me the strength to try and move forward with mine. I'm not asking for sympathy. What I did was wrong, and I'm paying for it. But if there's one thing I've learned from this whole mess, it's that love, real, genuine love, is stronger than any lie, any manipulation, any fear. Jake and Nia taught me that. So, let me ask you this. How far would you go to keep a friendship? And more importantly, what would you be willing to sacrifice to make things right? Because let me tell you, the price of betrayal is higher than you could ever imagine. If this story touched you in any way, don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever been the Evan in someone's story? Or have you been the Jake or Nia? Share your experiences. And let's talk about the power of forgiveness and the strength of true love. Follow this channel for more tales of love, redemption, and the complexities of human relationships. There's an exclusive playlist of stories that I'm sure you'll love. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single episode of this emotional journey. Remember, sometimes the bonds we think we're breaking are the ones holding us together in ways we never imagined. And sometimes it takes losing everything to understand what really matters. This is Evan Harris, signing off. Stay tuned for more stories from the heart of Atlanta, where love and redemption are always just around the corner.